our children after harvest. Because farmers are asset rich, but we are cash poor. And yet with one tax, the truth, this government seeks to destroy my and your farms forever. Their statistic. You can listen to my statistics, which you'll share as well. For 5 generations, for 139 years, for 50,375 days, through 2 world wars, through family tragedy, through a COVID epidemic, my family turned up to produce food every single day. Yet this government don't value that. And as my children are young, I have no option to hand my farm over to avoid this tax. Plus, as this budget makes no allowance for sudden death, if I drop down, as miners, they'd have to find hundreds of thousands of pounds on my death. I'm also a sole owner, so these thresholds and reliefs that Rachel Reeves likes to bandy about in the press don't apply to me. No, instead my farm would be taxed without mercy when I die. With current farm income so low, no bank would lend me the money to get my children out of this hole. And even if they did, it would cripple our business and it wouldn't allow reinvestment or progress for over a decade. You name me one other industry or business that gets told not to reinvest for a decade and to still stand and thrive. The only other option we have to sell land to pay the tax is equally devastating. We should not have to keep getting smaller because we cannot produce food doing that. Whichever way you cut this cake, the end, our farms broken, and we will not tolerate that as our future. So what is my worth, and what do the government need to open their ears to? For every £1 my business pays into the rural economy, it generates 7. Beyond just the food on our farm, I also host hundreds of deprived school children every year who otherwise would not step a foot outside of the town. We provide work placements for young people desperate for a career doing something different and outside. We're animal welfare champions. My father and grandfather built our village hall. We actively manage the landscape for tourists to visit and enjoy. On our farm, I'm part of 2 net zero projects, spearheading the farming as a solution to climate change. And yet the government seems to totally forgotten the role farmers play preserving and nurturing the environment. Without us, you have wasteland and bracken. With us, you have a thriving natural environment. You have species rich, you have grassland, you have habitats expanded. Every one of us knows those little pockets of nature on our farm that are truly magical. You take us out and put someone faceless in charge of our farm, they don't know what we know, and as a result the environment will suffer. We are irreplaceable as environmental champions, and this act by government to try to destroy us all is tantamount to environmental destruction on a mass scale. And above everything, my worth comes from producing safe, traceable, naturally fed food, and a cost that allows everyone to enjoy it. We as farmers are the solution to food poverty, and food poverty shames our nation, and we should be doing everything we can to put that right. So our worth goes beyond the land on which we sit. You destroy me and mine, and you rip the heart out of the countryside, out of the environment, and you force food prices up. So my name is Claire Wise, and I've tried very hard to hold this together for you guys. today, tomorrow, and for however long it takes to stop this. And that is what the government underestimates. Because I might be an average farmer, but I'm also an extraordinary human, and so is every one of you that's turned up here today. So I'll finish again with the statistics that really matter. 5 generations, 139 years on my farm, 50,375 days, and 3 children who believe in me and you to save their futures. So buckle up, Starmer, because you're not going to win this fight.
Come on!
Come on, guys.
It's gone a long way!
Brilliant. Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Rock, and I'm really proud to be a tenant farmer. Let's hear it for the tenant farmers out there.
She's gonna rock this place!
2 years ago, I was the author of an independent government review that looked at the future for our tenant farmers. The core message was simple. It focused on landowners and tenant farmers working together to do what every single one of you here do today. Produce food and deliver for nature recovery. Every single one of us here today do those 2 important things. Every single farmer here is a custodian of our land for future generations. I can see all the kids out there. Come on, kids, let's hear it. The future generations. But today, I want to speak about tenant farmers. I farm with my dad, who's 85, in the West Country. And tenant farmers look after 1/3 of England's farmland, but they don't own the land. There are tenant farmers here today who are worried about their futures and the unintended consequences that this budget will have on them. Less than 2 years ago, Keir Starmer, when he was leader of the opposition, told farmers that he understood the challenges to our farm businesses. And he vowed, and I quote him here, to quickly implement a fair deal for tenant farmers building on the work of the Rock Review. That included a reform to inheritance tax that would have encouraged longer-term farm tenancies. Now, I don't imagine for one moment that Rachel Reeves and Steve Reed have really understood the completely devastating impact that their budget measures will have on hard-working, family tenant farmers. I want to concentrate today on 3 measures that I think will have a material impact on our farming future. 1. Changes to de-linked farm payments. 2. Changes to employers' national insurance contributions. And 3. Changes to inheritance tax. First, there are many farmers who are really worried about how they are going to pay their rent. And they're really worried about how they're going to pay their rent because this budget, the de-linked farm payments, have now been capped at £8,000 next year. £8,000.
That should have got a boo.
Secondly, changes to national insurance contributions. It's going to make it really much harder to employ a farm worker and much more expensive. And third, for tenant farmers, the impact of changes to agricultural property relief and business property relief will mean that the tenant farmers face the stark reality that their landlord may well be forced to evict their tenants and sell that land to pay for an inheritance tax bill. There's also a real concern that landlords just won't invest in their tenants' farms simply for fear of increasing their farm value for tax. So the budget changes completely destroy any incentive landlords have to rent out land or to invest in existing tenant land. We need to encourage new entrants into farming. Young farmers, where are you young farmers out there? Forward-thinking farmers. Progressive farmers. And becoming a tenant farmer is often a step into farming. In one hammer blow, this budget changes will neither fill tax coffers nor incentivise real change for food security and for the environment, supporting resilience in our farming communities. This government needs to think again. It is not too late. Listen to our united farming voice. Support our nation's farmers. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Kate and Claire. Now are you warm enough out there? So now, our next speaker, we've got Baroness Malalieu. I hope I pronounced that correct. I'm sorry, James was meant to be on here to introduce her. So Baroness, do please come on, take the mic and give her a loud cheer, everyone, please. She's been on Radio 4, the Today programme this morning, making your case. Come on, give her a cheer!
Who see all that. And indeed the poll which came out yesterday showed that cross-party support for you runs right across all the political parties. I'm not going to read the whole of this. I'm waiting to hear from the people who are at the head of politics. But no political party in this country can win a majority without rural seats. When Tony Blair took office, there were over 100 rural Labour MPs. You may remember that the government launched an attack on the rural way of life then, and that expression which we heard only last week, payback for the miners, was used then too. John Major said that the resentment it generated would last a generation. And he was right, because Labour's rural MPs were reduced to just 17, and no Labour government was elected for 14 years. I can't believe that we're making the same mistake again. This is not just a numerical miscalculation, but a serious political one too. This week in the Lords, I spoke against this proposal from the Labour benches, and from every bench in that House, Conservative, Liberal Democrat, crossbenches and even the bishops, speakers condemned this policy. You have the backing of the nation for what you are doing here today. When I was a child, I remember going with some pigs to see Nye Bevan at his farm in Buckinghamshire. Jim Callaghan had a farm, and if you ask the last generation who was the greatest Labour Minister of Agriculture, it would have been Tom Williams, Labour. Governments need goodwill, and this one is going to need your cooperation if it's going to be successful. The choice is theirs. They can continue to insist that they're right and refuse to make any changes and dig that hole deeper and deeper, or they can accept that some parts of this policy were wrong and they can sit down with the farming community and its leaders and put it right. A good government would choose the second. We shall see.
Ladies and gents, I'm James. I'm a farmer. I wake up every day and I'm incredibly proud to say that I'm a farmer. You all stood here should be incredibly proud of who you are and the communities that you represent. And we wanted to bring Anne today because we don't just need each other. There are a select group of people in the House of Commons down the road that need leadership. Anne has just offered us leadership. Mr. Starmer has a massive majority. His MPs need someone to look to that understands that this isn't just about the thousands of people that stood before me. It's about the communities that you live in. It's about the snow that you clear, the parish rooms that you tend to, the hedges that you cut, the ditches that you maintain. This lady understands that. You need to make sure that all of their MPs understand that. So when you leave here, you don't leave and just think our job is done. You leave and you write. You leave and you go to your constituency meeting. You hammer home point after point after point that your placards make. But you do it with the dignity that you farm with every day. You should be proud of who you are. And that is why this lady stands before you. So I would like you all, please, to thank her with an absolute rip-roarer.
Now please help me in welcoming Ed Davey, leader of the Liberal Democrat Party. Now during the election, we got used to seeing him on a canoe, going down a water slide, or falling in a lake. But today, he's here to support you. And although it pains me somewhat to say this, his party does now hold a lot of rural seats, and you need their support in Parliament. So please, a loud cheer for Ed Davey.
Thank you, thank you. It is so great to see you all here today, and I am proud to be standing with you. You deserve so much better. The Liberal Democrats will be standing up for farmers because you have really got a case here. This really matters. Hello! You are the ones that put food on the table. You are...
Wait. Do you need another medic? Yes, okay. Can we get another medic, please? Can we get another medic? Can you see it's over by the statue? I should know who that is. Have we got a medic on their way? Okay. Sorry, we're going to keep these speeches brief. We realise it's cold. A lot of children out there. Ed, back to you.
Well, I hope our friend over there as well, let us give a cheer for them. Because they're part of us, they're part of you. You're putting food on our tables, you're the beating heart of our rural communities. You're the ones caring for our countryside and looking after our precious environment. And it's been so incredibly difficult for farming for so long. You've had to face rising energy bills, rising fertiliser bills, feed bills. Then you've had the botched transition from the basic payment scheme. Then you've had trade deals that prevent you from selling your produce into Europe, but allow Australian, New Zealand farmers to undercut you here. And that's all before some of the worst weather and flooding in generations. You have had it hard, and this government doesn't seem to realise that. I've heard this from farmers across the country. You're fed up and you've been taken for granted for far too long. You thought the last government would look after you, and I'm afraid they didn't. And many farmers voted for change. But you found you've got a government that just isn't listening to you. And that is so wrong. If they understood you, if they understood what you do and how important you are to our society, our food security, they wouldn't be imposing this outrageous, unfair family far tax. They say, well, farms are worth a lot, but they're only worth a lot on paper. When you add in all the costs you have to pay, there are many farmers who aren't even earning the minimum wage. Now, you are feeding our families and you're struggling to feed your own. That is just so wrong. And this family farm tax, if it goes through, it's not just cruel, but it's stupid. It's stupid. Who is going to buy your farms? It'll be the private equity guys, the big corporates. It won't be the young farmers, will it? And they don't get it. For years, DEFRA and the market have been pushing family farms to become bigger and bigger just to remain viable, just so you can afford the investment. And then Treasury turns around, this new government turns around and says it's going to tax you. That is just so wrong. And I'm afraid the future looks even tougher. If they go ahead not just with this tax rise, but removing the support, they're proposing now to cut the basic payment by 76% next year. Slashing payments, putting up taxes, all when you've already had such a hard time. They just don't get it. And you know, they are coming after you when they're leaving those organisations, the people who actually could afford to pay in the budget. You know, there are some sectors making huge profits, the social media giants, the online gambling firms, some of the big banks. They're making profits that are eye-watering, which you would just dream of. But they've left them alone and they've come after you. They just don't get it. And they don't seem to realise that if farmers can't make the sums add up, there won't be food on our tables. They'll be closing down and selling up, and who's going to look after the countryside then? We must get ministers to understand. We must get ministers to listen. You're doing a fantastic job today, and I can tell you that all 72 Liberal Democrat MPs will be pushing this government, not just today, but every day, until they listen, until they understand. We are going to fight for our rural communities. We're going to fight for support for farmers. We're going to fight to stop this family farm tax. I have just one ask of you. I want you to continue to do what you are the best in the world at doing. Producing high quality food for our country. You've been disincentivised for far too long to do what you're the best at. So please keep doing it, and we will stand by you every step of the way. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ed Davey. Big cheer for Ed Davey. How is everybody? So now we've got Kemi Badenoch. She's the new leader of the Conservative Party. MPs help in Parliament to make sure that finance tax doesn't get signed off. So please, give Kemi and Victoria Atkins the loudest cheer you've got.
Hello everybody. I'm going to start off with a simple message. This policy is cruel, it is unfair, and it is going to destroy farming as we know it. And that is why we will have here with me Victoria Atkins and Robbie Moore. They are the shadow ministers who are watching what the Department for the Environment, Farming and Rural Affairs is doing. They're watching the Treasury. We are the team that are working for you. We know the burden that farmers are carrying. A lot of people think that farming is just a business. It is not just a business. It is a way of life. It is about family. It is about the land. It is about the environment. It is about our food. We cannot survive without you. I want you to know that we have your backs. We are all, and Neil is here too, Neil Hudson. We are all MPs who have rural constituents. We cover the rural communities. We know what farming is like. We understand that you have no certainty. We know that bad weather, a bad harvest could put you out of business. We know that you are buffeted every day by what happens all around the world. We know that you need protection. We understand that you have been doing this all your lives, that without you, we cannot eat. We understand the burden that farmers carry, not just for yourselves, but for the whole country. We understand how difficult it is when you're negotiating with supermarkets. We understand how difficult it is when you're looking at prices for fertilizer. We know what you are dealing with, and that is why we know how this tax will destroy your way of life, and that is why we are going to reverse it. But I want you all, thank you, I want you all to know this, that farming in this country is absolutely critical for growth. And it is also about the hope that we give to young people. I have a lot of young farmers in my constituency. Victoria, Robbie and Neil do too. We speak to them and they are worried. They don't want to have to pay inheritance tax and be paying off to the Treasury for 20, 30 years before they even start making a profit. They will leave farming, and if we don't have a next generation, there will be no future. So I want to say to all the young farmers out there, to all the young people out there, we are going to look after you. We are going to make sure that you have a future. We are doing this for you. It is not about us. This is about you. This is about making sure that your way of life continues, that our way of life continues. Farming is the backbone of this country. Without it, we cannot survive. We know that we haven't always got it right, but this policy is so obviously unfair, so obviously cruel. We will do everything we can to make sure that in a few years' time, if they do not U-turn now, we will reverse this tax. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Kenny. Big cheer for Kenny Baylor. Now, I've heard a rumour that there's a man called Jeremy Clarkson somewhere around here. Now, as we know, Jeremy's a bit of a shy man. Doesn't like the public gaze, doesn't like public speaking. We don't know if he's going to make it on the stage, so could we all give him a big cheer to make sure he does make it onto the stage? Everybody, cheer! Right, while we wait for Jeremy to make himself available, I'm now going to have one last speaker. He's called Steve Perez. He is a farmer. He is also a hotelier, and his business is going to be hit hard by this tax. So let's have a big cheer for Steve.
G'day. most of you there, I'm also a businessman. I built a successful business out of the back of a van and I employ 400 people. Family farms, family businesses, we are all in this together. Family firms employ 4.8 million people in this. 4.8 million, there are 4.8 million family firms and 13 million people are employed in family firms. I've just heard the politicians up talking about what they're going to do. What we must do, what you must ask the politicians is we can't just accept we'll reverse APR. We have to think about BPR as well, because that is the thing they're not talking about. So please speak to your politicians and say, will you reverse? Will you pay back any money that we have to pay out? Give it us back, and that will give us security for the future. Our business, like farms, we can't just sell 20 bedrooms out of one of our hotels. We can't have 20% of our factory cut off. I saw today that the business minister, Jonathan Reynolds, is in India. He's getting a curry and a suntan. He's talking about trade with Russian-loving Indian billionaires. Right? And you know what they're going to do? They're going to buy our businesses, they're going to buy our farms. And they won't pay inheritance tax, and they won't pay capital gains tax. And that is the plan. We have to make sure that we keep our businesses. We borrow our businesses from our children. We have to think about their future. This is a fight we cannot lose. It is for our existence, for the existence of our families, our farms and our firms. And we have to, after today there's going to be a lot of press, but we just must keep this fight on. We must not be yesterday's news.
You can do better than that. Right, so apparently we're all overreacting and we should have got some legal advice. Who's spoken to their accountant and who spoke to their...
And I'm proud to be standing here shoulder to shoulder with you, with the other presidents of the farming unions. My message to government today is clear. When you make a promise to farmers, you keep it. I'm the fourth generation of my family farm with the fifth generation at home. Like many of you, when I went back to farm, my parents couldn't afford to retire from the farm. They're still in partnership with me today, some 20 years later. I've worked with multiple generations of my farm, just my family, just like many of you out there today have. These multi-generational businesses are special. We can't afford for this government to take us for granted and not respect what we do. Today isn't about left or right, it's about right and wrong. It's about policy, not politics. And this policy is simply wrong. So let's call this disastrous policy out for what it is. It's betrayal. It's betrayal based on questionable facts. I've met the Secretary of State, I've sat down with Treasury Ministers, I've looked them in the eye again and again, and yet they continue to double down and they don't believe the impacts this will have on you, your farms, your family, your future. Every penny the Chancellor saves from this tax will come directly from the next generation, having to break up their family farms. Are you proud of that, Chancellor? Across the country, tenant farmers are having sleepless nights. They worry the land will be sold from beneath their feet. That's not a future that anybody can invest in. This policy has far-reaching impacts. It stops you investing in your farms for the future. It cuts off the ability to deliver the food security message that the Prime Minister said is so important. But most importantly, the human impact of this policy is simply unacceptable. Generations that have worked their socks off to produce the food for this country have been cut off at the knees. They have no ability to plan their way through this. Octogenarians and older that have worked their lifetime producing food for the country have had a bitter, bitter blow. The human impact of this policy is simply unacceptable. The Chancellor says, invest, invest, invest. How many of you have got the confidence to invest in your farms for the future? We know many of you are putting off the investments that would deliver the food security they all talk about. They've broken a promise. Steve Reed stood on a platform a year ago, said they would not change agricultural property relief. He reinforced it 2 weeks later, and yet suddenly they've done it in the budget. But this isn't just about APR and BPR. They are the straw that broke the camel's back. We've had the fertiliser tax, the dramatic cuts to BPS, the double cab pickup tax, the inflationary pressures from the supply chain caused by the national living wage and the national insurance. This is a damaging budget for food production, and it will drive up inflation at the shelves. Because you lot have nothing left to give. You've been bled dry over years, and they must sort this out. For those of you looking on from afar, that are looking at the farming industry, thinking, how can you try and justify this tax? Those of you that may be struggling to afford the daily shop, we don't want to be here. All we want to do is produce your food. The budget is causing inflationary pressure. It's going to mean retail shelf prices need to go up. It's not us that's doing that. The APR and BPR change will create more volatility in the supply chain. It doesn't in any way help you. We want to feed you, we want to do it profitably. And I don't think anyone in this audience will have a problem paying any more tax if we make that tax from producing the country's food. But if that tax comes from untimely death or from the elderly, that is simply unacceptable. Before I wrap this up, I just want to give you 2 jobs. The first, excuse me.
What about the farmers from Scotland that were paid to make?
Excuse me, can we just, right, can I give you 2 jobs please? Right, can we give you 2 jobs please? First of all, we know the pressure this is putting on the farming industry. The mental health toll on our industry was already at record levels. I'm seriously concerned, as many of you are here, about the impact that this has. It's very far-reaching. When you're back on your farms tomorrow, pick up the phone to a friend, a neighbour, somebody that you haven't seen for a while, or that was a bit below par last time you saw them. Have a yarn. Make sure they're okay. And secondly, please do write to your MP. You may laugh at me, but they are elected to represent you. They must have heard today the impact that this will have on you, your farms, your future, your family. We are fighting for you every single day. You won't give up. We won't give up. The government must change course. They've simply got this policy wrong, and every meeting I go in, whether you're an NFU member or not, I carry you into that room with me, and we will do our best to fight this awful policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Now, the press tried to make it look like there was divide between us and the NFU. There isn't, because when we all go back to our day jobs, we need these guys behind us. We need them pushing and pushing. There is no divide. This tax affects every single one of us. When you leave in a bit, I promise we're near the end, I want to make sure that there's not an ounce of litter
We do not want to see a picture in the police drop litter and we've littered London. So if you see something on the floor, pick it up. We are gutted that we can't march, but it just simply is not safe. There is far too many of us. The fastest fast track, try and disperse that way. If you're by that alleyway, go between them buildings to Riverbank. If you're at the far end, go that way. We don't want everyone going in the same direction because this crowd is huge. Once again, can we have the biggest cheer ever for the Met Police for making this safe? We started with a team of 5, but there's hundreds that have made this happen. Whether it's the speaker systems, getting the tractors here, the pedal tractors, the stewards, and you guys. We want a massive round of applause for everyone that's started this and made it happen. Come on! You're all very cold and wet. I'm sorry for that, but we're hardy. We're used to it. We'd like to think that it ends here, but I fear this might be only just the beginning. But we're going to stick together and we're going to fight this. Once again, thanks to everyone behind us. I remember that we're fighting for our children, we're fighting for our grandchildren, and we will not be beaten. Thank you. And one last thing as well, I forgot, the Ulster Farmers Union are also here representing us. And Scotland, United Kingdom. Don't all try and disappear at once. Take some pictures, go and find somewhere warm to eat, something, and safe journey home. Thank you.
You get Tommy. Can you get Tommy?
James, sit down.
Come on, farmers!
How are you?
My sister. Well, that next week.
You didn't get a buoy, you got Thank you. It's your payment.
Oh, it's great! It's so sweet!
Yeah, it was all good there. When the man paid, yeah, you take the one with you.